Welcome to the show, Jason. How are you doing?
I'm thrilled to be here once again with you guys. Sorry it's coming to an end, like so many of our state championship teams around the country. Let's finish strong.
So, Jason, Megan was asking a little earlier, what are some of the scenarios that could arise that will affect the rankings that we just looked at? And what could be some of those scenarios with some of those top five teams that we were looking at, especially the undefeated teams at the top two places?
Right, yeah. The easiest cut and dry scenario would be for Mater Dei to win impressively this Saturday in the California Open Division state championship game against Bishop Dowd, another nationally ranked team. But even that really wouldn't guarantee them the national championship. We're really going to have to see how things play out next week at Dick's Nationals in New York City, where you've got number 2 Montverde Academy, who's undefeated with an asterisk, of course, and number 3 Rainier Beach, who I see as a little bit more of a long shot in this event. But again, they certainly are undefeated and have a national championship resume if they were to go forward and win three games next week in the Big Apple. So really, what we're really looking at, number 1, Mater Dei, number 2, Montverde Academy, and perhaps number 3, Rainier Beach as a long shot. But in terms of the scenarios, we're just going to have to see how things play out over the next 2 weeks. And when that time is up, we measure the resumes and see who stacks up the best.
Now, Jason, I don't envy your job after those two tournaments. I mean, you have a Mater Dei team that if they go out and they beat Bishop O'Dowd, who earlier they went to overtime with at the Tarkanian Classic, if they beat him really convincingly and then Montverde goes through the whole Dick's National High School Championships, it's going to be really difficult on your part, so I don't envy you. So good luck after all is said and done with making your final rankings, and congrats on getting that duty. Anyways, we always say, and I've learned now over these last few months that you got to have a warm-up before you get into any game, or else you're going to get injured, as I have been getting injured. So that question was our warm-up today on the show, and yours as well, Jason Hickman. The game, though, is right now with 3 in the Key with Jason Hickman. All right, Jason, as usual, we have 3 questions for you to answer and put you on the spot. So question number 1, after winning the New Jersey Tournament of Champions on Monday, do Carl Towns and St. Joseph of Metuchen in New Jersey earn a spot in next week's Xcellent 25 rankings?
Yes, they do, Chris. The hang-up with St. Joseph all year long was a 30-point loss to DeMatha Catholic of Maryland at the Spalding Hoop Hall Classic in January. That's a little bit unsettling, especially for DeMatha, since they went on to kind of have a little bit of a late season slide, and they're not in the rankings themselves. So that was a bit of a hang-up, but I think at the end of the season, you saw that the Falcons played number 2 Montverde Academy very tough in a late regular season game, and then beat a number of talented Garden State teams en route to the Tournament of Champions crown. Obviously, New Jersey, one of the top states in the country in terms of high school basketball. And at the end of the day, St. Joseph reigns supreme over that state. And I'm not quite sure who gets knocked out or what it's going to look like in next week's Xcellent 25, but I think it's a safe bet to say that St. Joseph will be there.
Okay, Jason, question number 2 now. As it stands right now, who is the best state champion on the outside looking in regards to the national rankings?
We'll go with the St. Edward Eagles of Lakewood, Ohio, the newly crowned Division I state champions in Ohio. And this is a bit of a tough one because we got to see this team up close and personal for 4 days at the MaxPreps Holiday Classic in December. Well-coached team that plays very hard and represents their school and state in a first-class manner. They've got 3 really good wins at that event, but ultimately came home with a loss to Westchester. It went on to have a very fine season, and this is, part of the tough decisions that come in this time of year. At the end of the day, there can only be 25 teams in the final rankings. St. Edward has a strong argument to be there. At the end of the day, I just don't think they have one of the top 25 resumes in the country this season.
Now, Jason, that's a very big win for at least the MaxPreps Holiday Classic resume as well. It looks like St. Edward winning in Ohio for their state championship. We also had Christian Brothers out in Missouri winning a state championship, Columbia Christian in Oregon winning the state championship. Westchester, who you just spoke about, actually made it to the Open Championship in Southern California. And Capital Christian, who was also up there, made it to the Northern California Open Division State Championship for NorCal. And then we also had Folsom, who right now is going to be in Division II State Championship. So the resume as the season completes and everything keeps building for the MaxPreps Holiday Classic. So great to hear that St. Edward finished on a high note. Anyways, with that being said, this is the last question. It's question number 3, Jason, for you. And before Dick's Nationals next week in New York City, who do you like to win it all, which is probably the best high school basketball tournament, postseason basketball tournament, and the closest thing we'll get to a national championship? Who do you think's going to win it all?
Well, first of all, before I answer that one, Chris, hats off to all the people that were involved in putting this together. 8 of the top 15 teams in my rankings, and you're absolutely right. To this point in high school basketball history, this is as close as we've had to a true national championship postseason tournament. I know I'm very anxious to sit down and watch that on television next week. But as far as my picks, I'm going to go with Oak Hill Academy on the top half of the bracket. I just think, that's a team that's going to be hungry to put something tangible and concrete on their resume. And I see them getting through to the finals to play number 2 Montfort Academy. But at the end of the day, I think head coach Kevin Boyle, Ohio State bound guard D'Angelo Russell, and Montfort Academy are going to be too much for Oak Hill Academy. I see the Eagles cutting down the nets at Madison Square Garden and once again making this national championship picture very muddy.
All right, Jason, thank you so very much. Always a pleasure having you on the show. And we know that you have a tough job ahead after the Dick's National to finalize those excellent 25 rankings. And we also know that you want to hear from coaches and players and viewers and get some help on that. So what's the best way for them to reach you?
High school basketball fans, let's hear it. You can find me on Twitter at Jason_Hickman.
Thank you, Jason, once again for joining us here on the Core Report. And thank you for everything you've done this entire basketball season. Hopefully we get to see you next season in the 2014-15 basketball season.